Hello everybody, my name is Yun, and today we'll go a little bit more into the open source side of Amphifin. This is the repository. It's used to mimic what's being done in the Hyper and Prague model, but it only has 132 indicators using TLib. So, first thing I would recommend, before you read anything, fork your own version. Reason why I recommend forking your own version is because a lot of people like to customize their own version of Amphifin. I've seen people want to use crypto. Sometimes they want to use other markets. Sometimes they don't want to do what's our default stock list, which is the Nasdaq 100, and that's totally fine. That is up to the user. So, fork your own version. Second thing, git clone. So, let's open up Cursor. You don't have to use Cursor. You can use any ID. Yeah. So this is what we were doing. Let me just do this one. So let's git clone. Hopefully git clone will work. Yes, so let's start git cloning tests. Let's delete this guy right here. Oh, it's open. Okay. Well, let's delete it again. Very good. Select our own version and let's go. Let's get it. Okay, so as you see, this is our new repository, and we already stepped into it. We already finished step 1, step 2. Third thing, oh no, we didn't finish step 2. So I think I intentionally made it so that I could mimic the errors that other people were getting. I think there were about 7-8 people who messaged me about this error. But if you do pip install MyStar requirements without having TLib, or the C++ for Microsoft, you should get an error. Yes, so this is the error that I was talking about. So it says that you should download the Microsoft Visual C++ 14.0 using this guy right here. So if you look into it, should just, this is the link right here. So just download build tools. There we go. Yes. Okay. So as you see, I already installed, tools. Yes. So as I said, I already installed the tools. So all I have to do is launch. Hopefully this works. And yeah, there we go. So this is a developer command tool that we could use. What I recommend is know your version of Python. So for us, we could just do Python --+ version. Ours is version 3.12, and we are using an x86. So we could just get thing. So let me just try to get the TLib installation command that I was looking into. Yes. So we could install using the wheel version. Paste anyways. And yes, this pretty much, should resolve our TLib errors that we were getting. So what I did was go to the easy installation, and what I recommend is, this individual has a lot of the wheel versions for TLib, so you could explore, which version is yours, and you could just install it using the x80, the Microsoft C++ developer command line. And yeah, so previously we were having errors, the TLib error, but if we install again, it should be perfect. Yes, so we have TLib installed, and this was pretty much 90% of the questions I was getting regarding installation. Everything else is pretty much straightforward. Configure API keys, you should use the .env and then just paste your keys like this. By default, I recommend people to use paper trading. Experiment with it before you put your real money. And set up MongoDB. One thing I will ask is, you can configure the network for your IP address, but if you're traveling, a lot, I would recommend just putting 0.0.0.0/0, which gives access to anywhere if you have your passport, username, and also I would recommend doing two-factor authentication. Those are done in other videos, so you can reference those. And lastly, I would recommend, just running python setup.py, and it'll set up your Mongo database for you. And yeah, there you go. You have Amphifin running. So, the testing and training things I was talking about. So we use WannaDB to track our training and testing. So you could use WannaDB. So what I would recommend is look at control.py. Control.py is where you could pretty much see, tests that you could have. So you could specify the project name, experiment name, which is going to be stored in WannaDB. You could set up your default trade mode. So you have additive, multiplicative, and balanced. So additive is less overfitting, but it could be underfitting as time goes on. Multiplicative is very much more overfitting, so it's very reactive. Could be good, could be bad, depends on your trading strategy. And balanced is a mix of both. So if you're asking me, what does Hyper and Prague have? It's not really either three. Prague and Hyper are using very much two different time delta modes, but it's for experimentation. So I would recommend experimenting with all of these parameters. So you could specify your stop loss, take profit. You could even specify, let's look at, yes. You could specify other things as well. So, your suggestion heap limit. You could specify your train rank asset limit, your liquidity limit for training, and yeah, that's pretty much it. You can also configure with these parameters. And for training tickers, you could specify, if you only wanted it to train on Apple stocks, you could do that if you want. If nothing's specified, it just automatically does the NASDAQ 100. So yeah, that is it. And let's get started. So these are the, training, testing, pushing. I would recommend, not to do push. So what push does is basically, it's going to replace, that experiment that you just ran. You could specify what experiment you want from WannaDB, but it's going to replace that experiment's parameters with what is existing in your Mongo client. And if make sure you are 100% sure that you're going to do it before you run push, okay? And you can specify what operation you want it to run. You can specify it here. Yes, so by default we have live, which is the default safe mode. You could alternate between train, test, and push. So train is basically training your own version of Amphifin. So you can give it different parameters and it'll generate JSON. Test will, if you put it to test, it will test that JSON file within a specified time period, which you can specify here. And push will, push those parameters into your repository and, it's into the trading simulator. So that is that. So that's a little bit more about training and testing. Let me see if there's any other things. Let's see. Yes. Yeah, so we run. Yes, so when you do want to run, Amphifin, it's very simple. All you have to do is run trading client here. So you could just do Python trading client .py and, hit enter and then Python ranking client .py. What I do recommend is people to use Oracle Cloud. Oracle I think they still allow you to use their 81 to 83 cluster for a certain period, I think, if you just put in your banking information, and they're not going to charge you. There's plenty of videos on how to do that elsewhere on YouTube, so I highly recommend checking those out. And yeah, yes, logs. So logs will be stored over here. So there's going to be a training log, there's going to be a ranking log, and there should be a trading log. So trading log, fairly simple. What assets were sold, what assets were bought, what assets got what ranking from what technical indicators. We also have, for training logs, it's basically does the same thing, but for training and for testing logs, basically the same thing, but for testing periods. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the full Amplifin pipeline from clone to live trading. So we aren't live trading right now. It's Sunday, and also the reason why I didn't show sign up for API keys was I tried doing that. It's kind of hard doing that without exposing your API keys, which is what I don't want to do, even for the open source side. So proprietary side, we are using different platforms in terms of data source and things like that, but the overall framework is pretty much similar, if not the same. So yeah, what I'd like to say is if you want, you could start a repo, you could join the discussions tab. If you still have trouble installing it, if you still have trouble running it, feel free to pull up in the discussion tab, and we'll be happy to debug with you. And if you want, you could also share your performance screenshots. So as always, happy coding, and I hope you trade responsibly. Thank you.